This is Jewish Spotlight, a weekly television program presented by Chabad Lubavitch of Long Island, featuring various aspects of modern Jewish life and Jewish culture. Now, here is your host, Rabbi Tuvia Teldin.
Shalom. Welcome to the Jewish Spotlight. Just getting into the Purim spirit over here with my mask. This, of course, is my good friend, King Achashverosh. And, of course, my tie is also in preparation for the Jewish holiday coming up, which is the very festive holiday of Purim. We do a lot of celebrating, a little drinking, I must say, maybe a little more than a little. And we also have a lot of other mitzvahs, a lot of commandments, traditions that we do that are special to Purim that we don't do the rest of the year at all, because Purim is a holiday that's one of the most joyous days on the Jewish calendar. So I have with me today, to help us celebrate a little bit and get into the Purim spirit this week, a very special rabbi who's working on campus at Stony Brook, who knows what it means to make a lebedik, which in Yiddish means to make a lively Purim. We have with us Rabbi Adam Stein, who works with the students at the Stony Brook University. Rabbi Stein, it's a pleasure to have you with you. Have you with us.
Oh, it's great to be here.
I've been saying too many l'chaims, I think, maybe before the show.
We just started.
Okay, so we have matching ties over here. I'm blue, you're green, but we're in the spirit.
Right, for sure.
Okay, first of all, let's start talking a little bit about Purim itself. For those in our audience who don't know what the holiday is, can you give us a little bit of an introduction? What exactly is this holiday all about?
Well, this holiday actually is, as you know, of course, based on the Bible. You have, the 24 books in the Bible. Besides the 5 books of Moses, it's called the Torah. You have a number of other books, the writings of the prophets. So there you have the book of Esther. And in the book of Esther is detailed a long story about the Jewish people living in Shushan, which is now current Persia, Iran. And there they had a little bit of anti-Semitism, and they got saved miraculously. However, I say miraculously, there wasn't any miracles. There's no splitting of the Red Sea. Everything happened by coincidence, a chain of events that led to the saving of the Jews.
In fact, so much so that, of course, God's name is not mentioned at all in the whole book of Esther, which is the only book of the Holy Scriptures that doesn't have God's name in it whatsoever.
Right, that's right, that's correct. What you had there was you had a king, Achashverosh, as you mentioned. That was the mask, your mask. And he was having a great party over there. And it came to it that his wife refused one of his requests. He had her beheaded. He had to pick a new wife. So he picked a certain woman to be his wife, the prettiest person of the land. She happened to have been Esther, a Jew. Now, because she was the right-hand woman of the king, his wife, she was privy to certain knowledge that his head minister, Haman, his name should be blotted out, of course, was going to actually wipe out all the Jews.
Why did he want to wipe out the Jewish people?
Well, Haman actually, he held himself to be not just a great minister, but actually a kind of a godlike being that everyone should bow down to him.
Right.
And the Jewish people, being a people of the one God, only bow down to God and nobody else, refused to bow down to him.
And this, of course, caused him tremendous anger and frustration.
Well, you would be upset also if no one would bow down to you.
Nobody bows down to me, don't worry.
Oh, and look how upset you are.
Now, Mordechai, of course, who was the leader of the Jewish people at the time, he was the one that Haman hated with a passion. And Mordechai was, in fact, I think the first time it's mentioned Yehudi, the word for Jew, was concerning Mordechai, because he would not bow down to anything. He kept strong, and he was very, very uncompromising in his belief system. So go on.
Oh, thank you very much. So then Mordechai, the whole chain of events, that Mordechai happened to overheard a plot that was being made to kill the king Achashverosh. He revealed that plot to Esther, who revealed that plot to King Achashverosh, and Achashverosh was saved from the plot. That was written in a certain diary of his. Later on, as Haman was trying to get his stirrings against the Jews, to try to get King Achashverosh to sign a contract to kill all the Jews, a decree to kill all the Jews, unbeknownst to King Achashverosh that actually his wife, the queen, was Jewish. At that point, a chain of miraculous coincidences happened. King Achashverosh in the middle of the night couldn't sleep. He thought that he couldn't sleep. Why? Because maybe he had owed someone a favor that he had not yet paid back. They checked the diary. He realized he owed a favor to Mordechai, who was the one who overheard about the plot to kill the king. So he wanted to do a favor for Mordechai. And the favor was that Mordechai should be ridden through the streets on a horse with all the kingly glamour, with the crown on his head. And who would lead Mordechai? Haman. His name should be blotted out, of course. Now, this was totally embarrassing.
Incidentally, of course, Rabbi Stein is always saying his name should be blotted out. In the synagogue, during the time when the Megillah is read, every single time Haman's name, or at least most of the times when Haman's name is read, we always go like this. And this, of course, is a grogger. And the grogger is there in order to blot out his name, so we shouldn't be able even to hear his name when the name is read during the services on the holiday of Purim. So should I do this to you every time you mention the name Haman?
That would actually be a good idea. And then I won't have to say his name should be blotted out.
Okay. Go on, continue.
Oh, so again we see a divine providential way in which God worked through the laws, through just regular coincidence, not a miracle, to make Mordechai the greatest person in the kingdom, and Haman had to be subservient to him. Now this is just the beginning of a chain of events in which constantly coincidence will allow the Jews to be on the upper hand, and Haman, his name should be blotted out, on the lower deck. Very good.
Okay.
So now, that also get Haman very angry, yeah? Until the very end, maybe until the end of the story, the Purim tale, Esther revealed that she was Jewish. Haman was going to kill all the Jews and her also, thereby killing the king's queen, to which the king turned over the whole decree, had Haman killed, and Haman's henchmen killed, and the Jewish people were free.
That's a great story.
It's beautiful.
It's a true story, and it happened between the destruction of the first temple and the second temple. So we're going back maybe over 2,300 years or so.
Could be.
This is ancient history. But it's not just a matter of history. This is something that was actually written down in a scroll. And we have over here, can you get a good shot on that? We have over here the beginning of the scroll. This is the very first words up here of the scroll. Vayehi b'yimei Achashverosh, and it was in the days of King Achashverosh. And of course the scroll goes on, and we read this. It takes about 45 minutes, and in synagogues all over the world, this scroll is actually read, which recounts by detail all the things, of course, that you just mentioned. And there are tremendous, tremendous explanations. Now, not everybody necessarily has to buy a scroll like this. These scrolls can go for maybe $500 and up, but most people have with them the family Megillah. The family Megillah is basically, of course, just a typewritten, printed explanation with all of the Hebrew in it, with the English as well in translation. And of course, in our synagogue and all the synagogues around the area, everybody is given one of these to be able to know letter by letter, because it's important that everybody hear all the words of the Megillah as they're being read, all of these incidences, which go on to really some tremendous detail as far as what the celebration of the Jewish people were. Now, okay, that gives us a little bit of detail as far as the background. Thank you, Rabbi Stein. Now let's talk about how we celebrate. Tell us a little bit about the mitzvahs, the commandments that we have for this holiday. In other words, this was a holiday that we almost were annihilated, physically, literally annihilated by one person. And of course, this is not the last time in Jewish history where this has happened. But we celebrate this in a very physical way as well. Being that our threat was physical, we celebrate in a physical way. So tell us a little bit about the way we celebrate on this one day.
Well, the main mitzvah, the main way of celebrating the holiday of Purim is by, publicizing the miracle. That we know that a lot of times things happen to the Jewish people. For instance, the Jews were slaves in Egypt. Why was Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, heart constantly hardened after one plague after another plague? He wouldn't let the Jews free. That's in order to show the world and the Jewish people the glory of God, how God will save the Jewish people at the last moment. So therefore, this happened in Purim. The Jewish people were saved also at the last moment from, you get your little noisemaker, Haman, his name should be blotted out. And therefore, the main mitzvah is to publicize the miracle. Publicizing the miracle is to hear the story of Purim read in the synagogue by that scroll you just picked up at night and by day.
Great. Okay. So that's something, if anybody can, make sure you go to synagogue on Purim, and it'll be a great experience for the whole family to be able to hear the Megillah read. Okay, next mitzvah.
Another mitzvah is that a lot of times when people are in tremendous pain and agony, they come together. Sometimes they don't have family gatherings, God forbid, unless it's a funeral. So too with any kind of pain and agony and suffering in one's life. So too it was by the Jews at the time of Purim. the fact that there was someone trying to go against them, an anti-Semite, it brought the Jewish people together to show the unity and closeness of Jewish people, which is just the first step to show the unity and closeness of all peoples together. We express this by helping our poor brothers and sisters by giving charity.
Right.
So a person on that day should give charity to 2 different people. And also, we also share by giving presents of food. 2 different kinds of food to 2 different types of people.
All right. And of course, we celebrate ourselves also. We make a big Suda, a big meal, feast.
Because we are celebrating life, that we are going to be killed, God forbid, the hands of the terrible you-know-who. Therefore, we celebrate with a tremendous feast, a feast that celebrates life, where we eat the best of foods and we drink the best of drinks.
Okay. Now, question. For anybody who just came onto the show, you see these 2 rabbis with beards sitting here with these nice, beautiful ties. I don't know, who's the...
If I may, I'll add
please.
my little glasses I brought to the show.
Oh, it matches your tie.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
So, here we have these 2 clowns sitting here. Now, the question I have for you, esteemed rabbi, please tell us, what is the reason for these costumes? Why on Purim do we all get dressed up in costume?
Well,
You
I'm
don't have
glad
to
that
do
you
this.
asked me that.
Professor.
Because it's an amazing thing on Purim. Purim was not like the exodus of the Jewish people from Egypt through miraculous plagues, a splitting of the Red Sea. Purim was one coincidence after another coincidence. How is it that the queen of all of Persia should be Jewish? And she should be the one to convince the king to stop his decree. It's coincidental. How could it be that the person to overhear the plot to kill the king was, by some accounts, by Jewish books, was actually the uncle of Queen Esther.
Mordechai.
Was Mordechai. And he should tell the queen what was happening.
And he was the leader of the Jewish people at
and
the
he
time.
should be leader. One coincidence after another coincidence that were so coincidental.
And that's just the beginning. Of course, it goes on and on, the amount of coincidences, quote unquote, that take place.
Amazing. Maybe you can remind me of another one. I'm forgetting some of them.
There are too many to number. Let's
Yeah.
just get to the point.
But what the case is, one coincidence, another coincidence, just sometimes you just see, it just something's happening. Someone's steering this from above. That was God. That's
Okay.
why it made that, even though God's name's not in the book of Esther, it's the holy book, so much it's in the Bible. Now, the fact that God was not revealed, no miracles, shows how God's hidden. He's hiding underneath a mask. Hence, we get dressed up, wear funny bow ties, funny glasses, and if you allow me, I'll get my red nose to show on how the hiddenness of God.
It wouldn't match the glasses and the tie. I'm sorry.
It would clash.
Right.
To show on the hiddenness aspect of God in the world, that we hide up like God hid up. And
So there are different types of miracles. There are open miracles where we see God's hand clearly, and that, of course, we read about many places in the Torah. I rather like it the way it is. And the second miracle is, of course, when God works through the ways of nature. Now, the interesting part about that is that, let's say if a person in their lives looks at, quote unquote, the coincidences of their life, what would you tell a person who tells you that they have a lot of coincidences that happen in their life, or even one coincidence? How would you advise them?
I would advise them that they should look into make up the coincidence, how each one happened at specific time, specific place, just so such and such thing should be the resultant cause, and they will come to see that it's actually not a coincidence, that it just couldn't be, that there's some purposeful meaning behind of it. And then they would waken up the realization that God is walking right next to them.
Right, and not just during the coincidences. The coincidences perhaps are a highlight of that time where we
Right.
see how God is working in our lives in very interesting ways. But of course, the real accomplishment is to see even in the simplest of activities how God is involved in our life. And that's really the beauty of the message of Purim. Because Hanukkah, we have, of course, the miracle of the lighting of the menorah for 8 days. And I just mentioned Passover. And all the other holidays have great miracles. This one is very quiet, very, very, very basic. Like you say, no miracles, no open seas. But I think in a certain way has the most powerful message. And that's why we celebrate to the great degree that we do. Now, how much is a person supposed to celebrate on Purim?
Actually, a person is supposed to celebrate so much that he cannot tell the difference between cursed Haman, his name should be blotted out, and blessed Mordechai.
Right.
Now the question is, how does someone get to a state where you can't tell the difference? Because Haman is evil and Mordechai is completely righteous, from the Jewish side. So how can you get such a state? So in such a state, if you allow me, I would like to demonstrate to the audience how we would celebrate. Now traditionally, you would bless each other with al-lachaim, to life. This, of course, is kedem grape juice.
You didn't put anything else in there. It's just
nothing here. But kedem grape juice is not the recommended drink for Purim. Because what a person is supposed to do is they're supposed to get literally so drunk that there's no good and there's no bad. Because it's all good. It's all from God.
So Purim, for our audience, is the one day of the year that it's a mitzvah. It's actually part of Jewish practice to really get yourself drunk.
That's correct.
Now, of course, under good supervision, no driving, everything else that, of course, we know about it, but under the proper circumstances. Why? Not just for the sake of getting drunk, but for the sake of elevating our feeling about Hashem, about God, and our sense of connection to a point that maybe we don't always allow it to happen. Because a lot of times people get drunk just to escape, or just to feel whatever they want to feel. But we're doing it for a mitzvah, and there's a big difference between doing it for a mitzvah. So let's say l'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim. And as we know, Hasidim never pour their own l'chaims because they want to shower blessings and l'chaims on other people.
So I'm going to pour more than you poured for me.
Oh.
What is this?
Okay, we'll have a wait till our argument for Purim.
Okay. Now we customarily say l'chaim levracha. It should be to life and to a blessing. And of course, as the Rebbe explained, that the reason why we say that is because levracha, to a blessing, can be broken up into two different words, which means leiv racha. Leiv racha means a soft heart. So the greatest blessing sometimes can be that we should have a soft heart, that we should be receptive to all of the beautiful blessings that we receive from above. So l'chaim, l'chaim, say a blessing together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen.
L'chaim, l'chaim. Now I noticed that you didn't wish me a l'chaim between the blessing and drinking.
Right.
Why was that?
Because once we make the blessing, of course, we want to go right into drinking. There's no procrastinating around here.
Right, because once we thank God, we want to go and do what we're thanking God
right.
for.
Now, let me ask you a question. What do you do on campus on Purim? Is Purim anything different than the other celebrations or holiday events that you have with the students?
Now, you know that University at Stony Brook is a dry campus.
Right, of course, because
so
drinking age is 21.
That's correct. So
now be careful what you say here.
So therefore, we emphasize all the other mitzvahs.
Okay.
The reading of the Megillah at night, the reading of the Megillah in the morning, or a lot of kids don't wake up in the morning. You know, university students, university student life goes until 5 o'clock in the morning and starts again at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. As such, we'll have afternoon Megillah readings.
Right.
Then we'll be distributing food packets to different students so they can give to their friends food. We'll have charity boxes called tzedakah boxes for people to give charity. And everyone will come over to my house for enjoy the Purim festival meal. And those people who are over 21 and can prove with positive ID will be able to continue with the Purim celebration as is fit.
Okay, glad to hear. Now, I just want to tell everybody a little bit about these types of boxes that we have over here. This is a Shalach Manas box. Now, people deliver all different types of beautiful gifts. I don't know if any of you have ever received one of these. It's really a nice experience. But it's something that we do every single Purim. We send out these gifts, thousands and thousands of them. People from all over the world will send by UPS, United Purim Service, and by all other types of means to be able to share the mitzvahs and the joy of Purim. If you go into Manhattan, for instance, and you see the mitzvah mobiles that Lubavitch has in the city, of course, there are young students who are handing out thousands of these to everybody. And in it, as you mentioned, there will be at least two different types of foods, maybe a hamantash and a licorice, or let's say a drink, or it could be some applesauce. It could be whatever you want, whatever a person wants to give. Sometimes if a Purim falls out on a Friday, we'll give out a little challah with a little wine or grape juice, because of course it's in preparation for Friday night. So this is something that's very special, and it's a tremendous business. And you go to some communities, of course, as Rabbi Stein and I know, where you literally have people, individuals, sending out hundreds and hundreds of these Shalach Manas baskets, literally big baskets, and some of them are pretty hefty, and some of them can cost $40, $50 or so, out to friends, and you're going to Jewish homes all over the world, and literally the room just fills up with these baskets and these gifts, because it's a time of sharing. It's a time of really as you mentioned, showing appreciation for the gift of life we have. Because if that guy whose name begins with H would have been successful, then we would have been, as I say, of tzalachas. We would have had big problems, and Rabbi Stein and I would not have been here today to be able to do this program, because there wouldn't have been any Jewish people at all. And of course, this is the beauty of that gift. Now, again, this contrasts with Hanukkah. Hanukkah, we celebrate in a very different way, because Hanukkah, what was the threat to the Jewish people, Rabbi Stein?
It was not so much against, they weren't trying to kill our bodies, but more our souls.
Right. It was a spiritual annihilation they wanted to accomplish. So how do we celebrate Hanukkah? Not in a physical celebrative way like this.
No, instead of having tremendous parties with lots of food and drink, instead Hanukkah is more celebrating in a spiritual sense, lighting candles.
Well, can you imagine if we had to celebrate like this for 8 days? We'd really have some problems.
We'd have big trouble.
Right, so
that just shows the kindness of God on the Jewish people.
Right, and the wisdom of the sages to make it only one day for Purim, exactly. So I think we're getting to some deeper issues here. Very good. Tell us a little bit more in terms of the role of Purim. I know that, for instance, on that day we also have the mitzvah of blotting out the memory of Amalek. Right,
that's correct.
Who was the ultimate enemy of the Jewish people. And never forgetting what Amalek does to us. And it's a time that we remember as Jews, all of the enemies of the Jewish people throughout the centuries, and how through all of history, whatever has come our way, somehow, and there's no logical way of understanding how the Jewish people even are in existence today. It just doesn't make sense historically, logically. You can fit all the information to the history books into a computer, as has been done, I understand, in MIT. And according to all studies, the Jewish people should have been extinct at least 1,000 years ago, but we're still here. So we remember our enemies, and we remember the goodness that we have and the gifts that God had, because it's only attributable to God's mercy for the Jewish people that we are still in existence in this world. Any comment on that?
Yes, actually I do. And every holiday...
Whenever you ask a rabbi if he has a comment on something, they always have comments. And me too. It's in the blood, I guess.
They always have to have the last word.
This isn't even just after a grape juice.
We haven't even started the bottle yet.
Okay. I'm a little afraid what's going to happen after the show. Okay. What do you have hidden away someplace? Go on.
Oh, but the whole thing of every celebration is not just to celebrate and have a good time, let's say like a party, and then the next day you go to work. Rather, that celebration is supposed to uplift you and bring you to a higher level. And this level that we're getting to is to realize God's grace, God's goodness to the Jewish people, and thereby God's goodness to all peoples. And through the act of having literally a party with alcoholic beverages, to get to a level where we're just so happy and beyond ourselves that we can't even realize the difference between good and evil, because everything's just good, it's all from God's hand. This level is the ultimate level that we're waiting for when the Mashiach, which in the English word is Messiah, comes. That this will be a day where there will be pure good, evil will be banished from the world, there won't be any more jealousy, no competition, no wars, and peace on earth will reign forever and ever. And this is the feeling that a person can experience in Purim, that everything is good and peaceful, everything happens by divine providence, every coincidence is God's hand, and everything is for the good. If by our eyes it might not look good now, we surely trust in God, then in the end it will end up perfectly fine.
Because I think that's a very important point, because the whole idea of Purim really is the salvation of the Jewish people. And of course, when we're talking about Mashiach, we're talking about really the deliverance of the whole of the universe, of the whole of humanity. That the Mashiach is going to come and bring that state of being for all of us. And just like the Jews, when they were actually in Persia at that time, had no idea where their Yeshua, where their salvation was going to come from. But of course, God came through, and it came through in a way they perhaps least expected it. And similarly now, I hope it's going to come, maybe it'll come in a way that we least expect it, but hopefully, whatever it'll be, it'll come very quickly.
Amen.
All right. So we're just at the conclusion. If we can just point out a couple other things concerning Purim. I just want to tell everybody also concerning the customs themselves. When you go to synagogue, of course, it's great for the kids to go in costume. In fact, I'm getting to like this tie. I think maybe you think I should keep this on the show. Can I borrow it?
You can have it.
Yeah, I can have it.
A present from Chabad of Stony Brook.
Okay. And I think that if you bring the children to synagogue, you'll find out that it's a very festive time of the year. You know, it's unfortunate that very often people go to synagogue for Rosh Hashanah and just Yom Kippur. And they don't really see the festive times of the year that Jews are celebrating. In fact, right after Yom Kippur, of course, we have Simchas Torah, we have Sukkot, we have a great time to be able to celebrate. So as a result, this is something that people cheat themselves out of. So just to be able to go to synagogue on Purim would be a wonderful, wonderful treat for yourself and for your family. And at that time, as I mentioned, the kids can come in costume. Very often there are costume contests where the kids will win prizes, let's say, for the best costume. Other times also there's a lot of dancing. There's usually some festivities after the reading of the Megillah. There's always usually some type of feast. And if you don't have a place to go to for a Purim feast, you can call Chabad anywhere around Long Island, or call the number we'll have at the end of the show, and we'll be sure to get you into a Purim feast someplace in your area, whether it be in Stony Brook with Rabbi Stein or someplace else. We have 18 Chabad houses all over Long Island, and there's going to be Purim galore. We'll have Purim extravaganzas all over Long Island. And it's something that really, if you haven't seen it before, you've never seen Judaism really in its celebrative best, because it's really a lot of fun. And we have all types of experiences to be able to share with you. And we really want you to be able to experience it, because it's really tremendous. Any closing words, Rabbi Stein?
Gee, I don't know, except Purim Sameach. Happy Purim.
Okay. Happy Purim to you, and happy Purim to all of your students. And I hope that you have a very celebrative celebration on campus. In the meantime, just want to thank Rabbi Stein again for being with us, and for the tie as well, and for the grape juice. And just to wrap up, I want to mention to everybody here that Jewish holidays have a lot of meaning, a lot of significance. And it's not just tradition or ritual. It's not just to be looked at as something that has no personal relevance in our lives. There's a lot of relevance, and there's a lot of ways we can learn from each of the holidays themselves, and how we can better ourselves as Jews, as human beings, in terms of our family life, our relationship with our spouse, with our children, with our parents, and any of a number of different things. It's just a matter of coming and experiencing. It's just a matter of looking up on a website, a matter of reading a book, a matter of seeing one of the insights from the sages, learning from the Rebbe's teachings, being able to really benefit from thousands and thousands of years of wisdom about life. These are not secrets, and these are not things that are just kept in the treasure chest that you have to have a special combination to be able to open up. These are things that are there as part of the inheritance of every single Jew, and as a wisdom for all of the nations of the world to be able to benefit from. And I hope that you'll be able to take the initiative. If you have a question, whatever it might be, a worry, whatever it might be, there are answers, and there are tremendous ways of being able to celebrate life to its fullest degree, because life is a gift. And it's a complicated gift, but God gave us the manufacturer's handbook, which is the Torah, and all of its mitzvahs, which help us understand how to best use this gift to its fullest potential. So, with that in mind, good night, Rabbi Stein. Take care, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week at the Jewish Spotlight. Shalom.